Welcome to the Iferia TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today we are joined by Mohamed Nabil, an independent philosopher and author from Egypt. He created something called AIDOP, AI Debates, on one's publications, where he prompts AI tools to criticize his own work and publishes unedited transcripts of the back and forth within 24 hours. He's also developed a framework called Enlightened Populism as an alternative to Blind Elitism and Ignorant Populism. His ideas range from establishing a global government to setting a world cap at $999 million per person. So, Mohammed, I am honored and excited to welcome you to the show. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
It's a pleasure to welcome you. So let's dive into it. Let's start at the beginning. You've written that a brain concussion in 2008 set you on a path toward philosophy and intellectual curiosity. So what happened? How did that experience change the way you think about everything?
Well, back in 2008, I had a brain concussion, and as a result, I lost my memory. So I had to reshape everything. I had to build my own personality from scratch. So I had to learn everything from the beginning, and I chose what to learn and I selected what to learn and what to get exposed to. So I was basically interested in philosophy, politics, economics, sociology, psychology, stuff like that. And then I expanded later on into philosophy specifically.
Okay. So you said it made you question everything, including yourself. So what was like the first few things you realized you had been wrong about?
Well, after the accident, I was a believer in. I believed in nationalism or patriotism. I considered myself a patriot for a few years, and I considered it a virtue. Now I realize that nationalism is absurd. I consider myself a citizen of the world. I believe that I belong to the entire human race, and that nationalism or patriotism is a structural barrier to achieving a better world.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about IDOP. You created something called AIDOP, that's AI Debates on one's publication. So what is it, in plain language?
It's a content creation framework by which a content creator prompts an AI tool to criticize their own content, engages in back and forth argumentation with the tool, and publishes the entire unedited transcript within 24 hours of the exchange. The goal of these debates isn't to win or lose. The main objectives include stress testing ideas through AI, effectively making them sharper by responding to criticism, refining one's own thoughts, simply accepting criticism as valid or agreeing to disagree in certain points, inviting readers to explore the mechanisms of the thought process instead of simply asking them to accept conclusions, and documenting where AI tools stand at the time of publication. So you have a piece of content, whether it's a book or an essay or even a video like this one, and then you get feed it into an AI tool, ask the AI tool to criticize it, engage in back and forth argumentation, and then publish the entire unedited transcript of back and forth argumentation within 24 hours of the exchange.
Okay, so we ask AI to be our critique. So what exactly, is the end goal of this, all criticism? Does it make us better thinkers? Does it enhance our ideas? Does it open our eyes to the flaws in the potential publication? I'd like to know why we have to be critiqued by artificial intelligence.
Well, the idea of having a debate on a book or an essay keeps it alive. It turns a book or an essay from a closed chapter into a series of closed chapters into a living text. By debating something, you keep it alive. That's the general idea. So using AI as they almost have the sum of human knowledge nowadays because of the huge data sets they've been trained on. So especially if you have radical ideas like mine, especially if you're calling for establishing a global government or stuff like that. You can let the AI tool criticize your own content using the consensus established within social sciences and humanities, and you can engage in back and forth argumentation accordingly, allowing people to follow the reasoning instead of simply accepting or rejecting your conclusions. So this is linked to my core philosophy, which is Enlightened Populism. I codified Enlightened Populism as a behavioral pattern of communication. It involves listening to multiple experts, trying to understand how they reached certain conclusions, and investigating the information to discern the truth. So Enlightened Populism is enabled and encouraged through AI debates on one's publications, because you basically allow readers or audiences to follow the reasoning behind your own conclusions.
So, Mohammed, why do you publish unedited transcripts of AI criticizing, your own work in within 24 hours? What's the purpose of that?
To document where one or multiple AI tools stand at the time of publication. The main idea is that these tools evolve over time, and they may come up with smarter criticism the next day or the day after. So to document where they stand today, this is why I tend to publish within 24 hours of the exchange.
Okay. So I like to know, for you personally, Mohammed, what's one hard piece of criticism? What's the hardest piece of criticism you've received, from an AI about your own ideas?
Well, I had a theory on work-life balance, and I engaged in AIDOP session with an AI tool. It was ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told me that my idea wasn't universal, that my own theory wasn't universal. Not everyone can apply it. It had to do with managing your own time and managing getting out of deep sand effect, and focusing on long-term objectives and celebrating the small wins and stuff like that. So it was a comprehensive theory, and it told me it wasn't universal. Not everyone can apply it, because some people economically are stuck within multiple jobs, not because of their choice. They just need to work most of the time in order to survive. So the theory didn't work for everyone. This was the harshest criticism, and I accepted it as valid.
Okay. So for you, the AI told you that your idea wasn't universal, not everyone can apply it. On reflecting back to that criticism, what did you learn from it? Did you find that it was actually, a positive criticism, something you could actually get a lesson from?
Yes, it did, because sometimes you come up with an idea. The idea of coming up with a work-life balance theory was based on my own experience as a workaholic. So I started applying lessons from my own life into the theory, and then I reached certain conclusions, and these conclusions can serve other workaholics like myself, those who are workaholics by choice.
All right.
So it doesn't fit for everyone. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing. Yeah, it was beneficial to get this kind of criticism from the AI tool to remind myself that not everyone is a workaholic by choice. Some people need to work for long hours because of economic situations.
Absolutely. So, you've also said that AIDOP, it could actually revolutionize education and publishing. So how is that? What changes when, students and readers, can see the back and forth between an author and an AI critic?
Within publishing, you're changing the dynamics. You're changing the dynamics of authorship. You're not simply being an author speaking from an ivory tower, telling everyone what to believe and what to follow. You're presenting a certain thesis or a theory, and then you're publishing the back and forth argumentation, allowing people to follow the reasoning. So I have this book, it's called Ideas That Survived AIDOP, or Ideas That Survived AIDOP. People can read into the book. I have it paired together, essays paired together. One essay, original essay of mine, and then an essay that includes an AIDOP session on the original essay. So it's a series of essays paired together. So people can follow the reasoning behind each of my own theories. So this way, we're changing the relationship. I'm not asking them to believe a certain thing. I'm telling them this is the best I can come up with, and here are the arguments and counter arguments. Even the counter arguments are included. And if you wish to believe something that I don't believe in, that's your own choice.
Hmm.
Within education, it might change how the educational system is going on right now. We have a panic within educational systems around the world about AI and the use of AI within education. So instead of cheating or ghostwriting or idea generation through LLMs, we can ask students to submit AIDOP sessions at the end of each assignment and then handle debates with their own human colleagues on the findings of their papers.
So, if you could redesign a university course using this approach, what would it look like? You talked about how they can submit that, but if you are going to be detailed about it, like a framework, how would you put it?
Well, I'd integrate it into the already existing courses. So, for instance, people are studying sociology, for instance, and they need to come up with a research paper on various sociological aspects within various agents of socialization within a society, and the varying influence of all of these agents. So the student will take the paper, get it done, get the research paper done, just like they would in a regular scenario, just like they did years ago. At the end of it, they'll include an AIDOP session. They'll take their own content, feed it into an AI tool, ask the AI tool to criticize it, and engage in back and forth argumentation, and then publish the whole thing. They'll take the whole thing and submit it to the teacher. And then the teacher will ask them to start a debate with their own colleagues on their own findings to make sure that they didn't just let AI tools speak to one another, because their students are smart about these things. They can find a way to cheat around.
Yeah, students, they like to find their ways around things, they like to look for shortcuts and all of that. So, Mohammed, there are people who genuinely have fears about artificial intelligence. Some of them fear that AI will take their jobs. Some of them fear that AI will replace them. Others fear that AI will gradually erode their critical thinking skill. So, for those set of people, who are afraid of losing their creativity and critical thinking to AI, how does this idea of, having AI as a critique, how does it change the narrative for them? Does it actually enhance thinking, going through back and forth conversations with an AI critic, or does it just leaves everything, all the thinking for the AI to do? Putting you in the position where over the span of years using this tool, you might actually lose your critical thinking. I'd like to hear your own thoughts on this.
Well, AI, at the end of the day, AI or especially LLMs are just tools. It depends on your own use of it. So if you use an AI tool for idea generation, if you use an AI tool to generate questions on your behalf for the interviews, or if you use it for idea generation in general, your mind will become numb over time. You'll keep relying on the AI tool to generate everything on your behalf, and over time you lose your own capability and your own abilities of generating ideas. On the other hand, if you use it as a critical thinker, if you use it like I do as a debate partner, you're practically letting the AI tool sharpen your own thinking, because by responding to its criticism, you can sharpen your own ideas. And at times, like I explained previously, you can accept criticism as valid or agree to disagree on certain points.
All right. All right, that makes a lot of sense. So, you also talk about three ways people form opinions. Talk about blind elitism, ignorant populism, and enlightened populism. So, can you break these down for us? Why do you think most people default to some or others?
Well, blind elitism entails blindly following an expert or an elite or a certain issue, and ignorant populism also involves the absence of investigation while relying on feelings or trends. So the reason why these two, I consider these two to be the two dominant behavioral patterns of communication in today's world. And the reason they are dominant is because of the cognitive energy you need to practice enlightened populism. People find it easier to follow a certain expert blindly or to follow a certain trend or a feeling without investigating the information. It's easier. It doesn't require cognitive energy. It doesn't require cognitive effort. However, what I'm preaching for is enlightened populism, which is a behavioral pattern of communication that involves listening to multiple experts, trying to understand how they reach certain conclusions, and investigating the information to discern the truth. So it requires cognitive energy, and this is why people need to train themselves to use.
Okay, what does it actually look like, for to practice enlightened populism, in your day-to-day life?
Well, in my day-to-day life, I can tell you about something that happened to me. I had a minor health issue recently, and I went to multiple experts. I practice enlightened populism, so I went to multiple experts, and they gave me various diagnoses. They didn't give me the exact same diagnosis, so I had to do my own research based on the tests that I conducted, the medical tests that I conducted. I had to do my own research, and I identified the problem, and I, from the content published by other experts online, I managed to find a solution, a medical solution for my trouble. It had to do with a few dietary changes and a little bit of training and stuff like that. So I did it, and now I'm fine. So it's essential in the areas of life that you consider essential for yourself. So healthcare would be essential, would be a priority. Legal matters would be a priority. Political issues, if you live in a world like the one I'm promoting for, if you live in a world where you need to directly vote on issues instead of relying on representative democracies, then political issues will be a priority. You will need to be aware of them in order to formulate your own opinions and stuff like that. So it depends on what you prioritize in your own life, the aspects you prioritize in your own life.
Absolutely, really insightful. So, Mohammed, you talked about how you went to investigate and do a little research on your own. So, I'd like to know how do you investigate information, without actually getting overwhelmed?
The best thing is not to blindly follow a certain expert. You need to, in my own case, I got information from multiple sources, and some of these information were a little bit contradictory. So I had to verify from multiple sources, from multiple credible sources, well-established institutions. I had to cross-verify their own messages and cross-verify what they have written. So in my own case, it worked out well, and I believe others can do the same.
All right. So, here's a personal one, opinion-based question for you. After creating IDOP, writing multiple books and thinking deeply about the future of humanity, I'd like to know, like, what does innovation, mean to you now? Is it about better technologies, better ideas, or a better way of questioning everything we think about? I'd like to hear your own personal opinion on this.
Well, innovation is everything. Innovation, we can innovate within technologies. We can innovate within the way we handle information. And most importantly, we need to change the way we deal with information, and we need to rely on critical thinking. Most importantly, we need to keep questioning everything we know. So as human beings, we strive for consistency, and that's a main issue. When we all strive for consistency, we may find the consistency we are seeking within the boundaries of uncertainty by embracing the fact that opinions, attitudes, and beliefs are changeable over time.
All right, that is such an interesting, meaning you've attributed to innovation. Thank you for sharing it with us, Mohammed. So to wrap things up here, for our listeners who actually wants to go, explore your ideas, read your books, or just continue this conversation? So, where is the best place for them to start?
My books are available on Amazon and Google Play, and they can start by visiting my own website, mohamednabil.world, mohamednabil.world. It would be helpful if you can leave it in the description of the episode or
Yep,
notes.
absolutely. I'll be sure to have it included in the show notes. So for the listeners, you can scroll down and you would see Mohammed's website right there. So it has been a really insightful conversation, thought-provoking one indeed, with you here today, sir. And I thank you very much for taking the time to join us on the show. Been a true honor having you here.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.